Hey there, Benchmarks members. Welcome to another update. Our previous update gave an overview of the budget as well as some bills that were moving through session. We have attached to this video an overview of the budget as well as the bill tracker that lists all the bills that we were looking at during session. There's quite a few of them. If you want more details, please look at those because I don't have time to go through all those and you really don't want to hear me talk that long. So look at those, see if there's any particular bills you're interested in. It gives an overview of them and there's a live link on there so you can just click on it, you can see what's happening with the bill. So that being said, what I'd like to do is just give you an overview that will wrap up this session. That's right, session is ending. They are going home this week and they will not be back until long session unless there's a special session, which could happen, it could happen, but we expect them to be coming back in January of 2019 for long session. Okay, that being said, we're going to do an update. If you listened to the last update, you know that this was kind of a weird budget session, like really weird. So most of the budget was done before session even started, which is odd in and of itself. And then they didn't go through the normal procedure for the budget, which requires committee hearings and all kinds of public stuff. Instead, they took an existing bill that had made crossovers, stripped it out, and put the budget in it, which did not require it to go through the usual process. In doing that, I mentioned in the last video that it was likely that they were going to identify and had identified some problems in the budget, and there were also some things that probably would get put in to a bill to amend the budget. Well, we had a bill to amend the budget and fix some problems, and I want to mention a couple things in them. One is they realized that they had not paid for the Suicide Prevention Lifeline funding. This is the suicide hotline for North Carolina. This was a pretty big deal. This hotline gets about 255 calls a day. And most people don't realize it, but one person dies every 6 hours in North Carolina due to suicide. So losing this hotline was a really, really big problem. They fixed that, put the money in there. They also added some language in this budget amendment that would provide for the department to study supports for group home services through in lieu of services. So currently, if you provide an adult group home, some LME-MCOs pay an enhanced rate, not all do. But the idea behind this is if the department studies to create an in lieu of service, and as a result of that gets approval through the feds, it makes it a lot easier for an LME-MCO to provide the enhanced rate to group homes through this in lieu of service. Now again, the LME-MCO gets to decide if they do or do not want to do in lieu of services, but it certainly makes it easier. So that also was included in the budget. Just a reminder again from the last update that one of the big things that was included for benchmarks that we worked on in this budget was to reduce the Medicaid risk level for behavioral health providers. So currently the way it was, if you were a CABA, you were medium, anybody else who was a behavioral health provider was high risk. This created a lot of administrative burden and costs for you. And what we did is in that budget had it reduced all of the behavioral health providers for our agencies and for the licensed individual professionals, all have been moved from high risk down to limited or low. That went into effect when the budget went into place, so you should be seeing the relief on those requirements very, very soon. And we will be following up with the department to make sure that that relief is put in place very, very soon. So that was some changes that were in the budget and also just a reminder on the Medicaid risk level. I do want to talk about a couple bills that have happened. There was a bill that passed. It was Senate Bill 768. This was a bill primarily moved by Senator Berenger. It was called People First Language. I really like this bill. What it essentially does is it changes statutory language that doesn't equate a person with their disability and also removes any kind of derogatory language that was in statute. So an example of that is They changed reference to mental retardation to intellectual disability, and they don't equate a person with the disability. So it's the person and then whatever disability they have. And it's just a lot more respectful. So super happy they did that. And also along with that, there was funding in the budget that was to provide $125,000 to the North Carolina Association of People Supporting Employment First, and it's to develop and implement training and using evidence-based supported employment services for individuals with IDD or with a serious mental illness. Now, the reason I bring these two up together is there was an IDD committee this year at the legislature, and there was a lot of really positive discussion and recommendations, primarily around inclusion, because this was sort of the first piece they were looking at, employment inclusion. So there was a lot of discussion and recommendations around that, and this is relatively new in seeing this. We're just extremely excited and pleased to see that kind of discussion taking place and movement in this area. So I did want to note that. There also have been two bills that matter to us that have passed that will be a constitutional amendment. And just so you know, there's going to be multiple constitutional amendment on the November ballot. When you go to vote, you have to decide. Two of those I want to mention, just so you know, hunt and fish, your right to hunt and fish, will be on the ballot. So make sure you get out there and put your opinion on hunting and fishing. But the ones that are affecting us, one is a constitutional amendment that would max the income tax rate. So here's the deal with that. The Senate wanted to cap the amount that could be taxed for individual tax rate at 5.5%. Currently in North Carolina, we're just a smidge under 5.5%. So basically would be allowing just the tiniest bit of increase in the income tax. And it also would cap the corporate rate as well. The pushback is, so in Colorado, who passed a constitutional amendment like this, what happened was when there was an economic downturn and there was a higher need for services, think about Medicaid services, and less available funding, what they did, because they couldn't increase the corporate or the income tax rate, is they reduced services that were available. So what they did was they cut Medicaid services. That was one of the first things they cut. And they cut just about all the optional services. This was pretty devastating for them. They're also, schools have a great deal of concern about this, because that's another area. The two biggest places we spend money are Medicaid and schools in every single state. And so there's a lot of concern. Those are the first places that get hit when you don't have enough money in the budget. The House couldn't get the votes to support the 5.5%. The compromise was they went to 7%. So the constitutional amendment on the ballot in the fall will be about capping at 7%. There also was a bill around victims' rights, strengthening victims' rights, and in that particular constitutional amendment, it really was around supporting and ensuring victims have right to notice and different types of information. There was language in there originally that Senator Barringer worked to make changes on along with some other legislators. The language was not good for juveniles. There was a number of things that were very concerning. However, there were amendments made to that bill towards the end, and it is that a lot of that egregious language was lifted. There are some folks who still have concerns about it, but again, that will be on the ballot in November. So again, just a reminder, you want more details, go to the links and you can look through lots of details. I am not going over the budget again because you're probably already sick of hearing me talk from this video. But as always, if you've got questions or there's something in the budget that's confusing you, please, please, please feel free to give us a call or an email or whatever you need. We would be more than happy to talk with you. That being said, I hope you all have a great day as we move to the end of the 2018 legislative session. Woo-hoo!